Welcome back to Just Chattin', and this is the series of videos we do on Thursday and Sunday evenings just for our own entertainment. So, for all you Audie fans, he is snoozing in the bedroom. He's a cat. This is what he does. So, he may end up coming out. I don't know. He hasn't lately. For the last 3 or 4 videos, he's stayed back there. So, I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for him, even though I'm sure he does want us all to be holding our breath, waiting for the cat to show up. All right, green for St. Patrick's Day. Now, when this video airs in Ireland, it will be something like 1 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, meaning it will be St. Patrick's Day already. So, I was thinking maybe I would make an effort to wish you all a happy St. Patrick's Day in Irish Gaelic, but I would just embarrass myself. So, I'm thinking back to one of my favorite movies. I'm going to let somebody else do it for me.
Say something in Irish.
Ellen go black.
Yes, that was from Flower Drum Song, one of my favorite movies. So, greetings to all of our Irish viewers. Now, when we come back from the intro, we are going to get into a topic that I have been itching to get into for a long time, but I've had to wait until we get a lull in Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet and their usual antics in order to do this. We have it now, so I'm going ahead with it. I'll see you in a sec. So this topic is basically a response to the media allegations. And mind you, this is Sussex-friendly media. That poor Nutmeg and her poor pet sock puppet are caught in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Because everybody's going to hate them no matter what they do. But I don't think that's true. And in fact, looking back on the dynamic that Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet have put in place, which frankly, I have to tell you, I think is very aggressive. I think their attitude, not just toward the media, but toward the general public from the very beginning, has been hostile and aggressive. And I thought we would take a look at one aspect of this. And I think this, in fact, very much encapsulates their attitude toward all the rest of us. And that is this false dichotomy that they structured from the moment their relationship became public. So for those of you who are not familiar with the meaning of dichotomy, and not trying to talk down to anyone, but I do know some of our viewers do not speak English as a native language, and this is not a word commonly in a lot of vocabularies. So a dichotomy is a forced choice. It's this or this. You're offered 2 options that are usually in complete opposition to each other and mutually exclusive. So, cat or dog, art or science. And as we move into the 21st century, we are finding fewer and fewer of these absolute opposite, mutually exclusive choices in our lives. Some of us find it somewhat confusing, but hey, that's life. Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet started off creating a false dichotomy. Now, a false dichotomy, as opposed to a real dichotomy, is one that is patently not an either-or proposition. It's not cat or dog and nowhere in between. So, if we're going to take a look at this, what we have to do first of all is we have to just sort of flash back in time So let's crawl into the Wayback Machine, and I know my generation is going to know what that means, and go back to 2016. Now, 2016 is the point at which their relationship became public. If you listen to Nutmeg and the Sock Puppet talking about how their relationship started, how long it's been going on, you're just going to spiral down a rabbit hole because they change the story all the time, and I don't think anybody really knows exactly when or how it started. Who knows? Maybe they don't even know themselves. I do know some people have put forth a pretty good argument that it predates 2016. So I'm just going to go with when it became public. And it started to become public in the summer of 2016. And as it started to unfold, what we started seeing, and this was our first hint, assuming you're inclined to call a hit in the head with a 2x4 to be a hint, we started seeing the first hint in Nutmeg's social media posts. And I'm sure we all remember this. She was dropping hints like atomic bombs, wearing an H&M necklace, showing pictures of spooning bananas, wearing a bracelet that matched the sock puppets, photographing her dog on a Union Jack cushion. She did everything she could do to throw this out into the open, while simultaneously insisting that this was their time and they wanted to keep it private. Yeah, right. Well, by November of 2016, she had persuaded the sock puppet to make a public statement asking the media to leave her alone. Now, remember, she's the one who threw all these teasers out in the first place, and as she had been doing for many years, she was still courting media attention, making pap walks, showing up at the palace. I mean, it was over the top. But she did get the statement out of him in which the sock puppet had his staff release a statement asking people to leave his girlfriend alone, and she was described as his girlfriend for the first time, which was a major coup for her, because if she was going to lock that down, she had to get a public acknowledgement of the fact that they were dating. She got it. And he further went on to cite the criticisms of Nutmeg being racist and misogynistic. He offered no support of that, and he did admit that they were staying up nights trying to combat stories that were appearing in the press about her. Small wonder. And for starters, he was a member of the British royal family. He was allegedly a working royal at this point, and the person that he is dating is a matter of public interest. I'm sorry he doesn't agree with that, but hey, there's a price you pay for all the privilege you get, and this is one of them. So this whole poor little me, they're meddling in my life, now he's got to give that one up. But in so doing, in making this statement, and in claiming that the foundation of these comments was racism and misogyny, that was the first inklings of the false dichotomy they set up. He was saying, love Meghan, be a racist. Those were your two choices. You either adore her or you are a racist or a misogynist. And that's where it started. And then it escalated from there, because we didn't know at the time this was just his opening volley. However, it wasn't as successful as he might have wished, because many of the people in Great Britain, first of all, had no idea who she was. You know, Meghan who? And not knowing who she was, they certainly didn't know what her race was. Many of the people who did, in fact, know who she was, and that was a very small percentage, because her only claim to fame prior to this had been a cable television show that was made in Canada and, in fact, never broke the top 100 of the television shows in the entire period in which it was on the air. Never once. Here Comes Honey Boo Boo made it into the top 100, I think 2 years. I think it was 2 years it did. So yeah, it wasn't even as popular as Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. Wow. So people didn't know her, and the few who did had no idea what color she was. So social media comments that were coming out were, what is he talking about? Because remember, it was in this period that Nutmeg was declaring herself to be Maltese. So you can't blame people for thinking, well, she has a swarthy complexion. She's of Mediterranean descent. Why? Because she told the world that. She did not say, look at me, I am biracial. She said, look at me, I am Maltese. Now, to be fair, she did eventually claim she was biracial, but who knows which story you're supposed to believe at this point. Is she Maltese? Is she biracial? She simply told too many stories to leave a clear impression in anyone's mind. So, time moves forward. They play the race card again and again and again, and to a very successful degree. They certainly did manage to tamp down a lot of the normal criticism that would have come Nutmeg's way had she been a white adventuress instead of a biracial adventuress. Yes, they did tamp a lot of that down. But you can't keep that going forever. Then the social media cancel culture moves in and takes over. And we saw this. A lot of people were hit by this. I'm going to stick with the four that I consider to be most conspicuous. And that is Piers Morgan, Sharon Osbourne, Lawrence Fox, and Jeremy Clarkson. So let's start with Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan was love-bombed by Nutmeg when she was still attempting to snag herself a rich titled Englishman. By the way, that is in Tom Bower's book. That was her goal in going to the UK before she hooked up with the sock puppet. But she love-bombed him and then markled him. He was not happy about that. And he made many public statements about that because unlike most of the people she has markled, Piers Morgan actually had a forum, a television show in which he could air his negative opinions about her, and he did. Eventually, he ended up getting into trouble because he questioned her claims that she had been suicidal. So do I. Made a video about it. Don't believe it for an instant. So, yeah, I am 100% Team Piers on this one. That everyone thought was going to be a career ender for him, but this is a guy who worked his way into that position. It's a person with intelligence and talent and a lot of charisma. So yeah, they might have gotten him off one show, but they didn't get him off the airwaves for good. Thank goodness. And then Sharon Osbourne, who came out in defense of Piers Morgan. Her claim was all he was doing was stating his opinions. He has a right to do that. Sharon gets canceled too. It goes on. Later, Lawrence Fox, he is not particularly well known in the US, but he was a very popular actor in the UK. And he was, I say, because frankly, I don't think he ever recovered from the cancel culture attack on him when he came out and said, I don't think the UK is a racist nation. I don't think the British people are racist people. I think that Nutmeg claiming that she was the victim of racism from the press, the people, the royal family, I think that's not correct. Well, goodbye, Lawrence Fox. And then, of course, Jeremy Clarkson, who said she should be paraded through the streets like a scene from Game of Thrones, and people should shout shame and throw poo at her. Cancelled again. But Jeremy Clarkson survived. By the way, Sharon Osbourne did too, because these were major figures in should I call it the entertainment, the news/reality/entertainment industry. I guess that's the best way to do it. So they all did survive, but every last one of them was accused of racism, because you're not allowed to make any statement about nutmeg without branding yourself a racist. Can't do it because of that same false dichotomy. Love her or you're a racist. Period. So we look at this and we see that none of this holds up, frankly. Because in addition to declaring everyone to be racists, misogynists, we move on to, you are in love with the royal family. You are a devotee of William and Catherine. You are a monarchist. That doesn't work with me. I am not a monarchist, and I don't like nutmeg. So there you go. But, if you do not love her, you must be an imperialist. You must be a fan of the Commonwealth, of Empire 2.0, and on, as they heap all of these labels on the people who don't go along with her being the Empress of the known universe. And that started to crack pretty early on when people like Candace Owens, a highly intelligent woman of color, had started to criticize nutmeg. Well, are you going to call her misogynistic? Are you going to call her racism? Because unlike nutmeg, Candace Owens is a woman who is clearly black. I don't think anyone has any illusions about that. So you can't even say, well, maybe someone was mistaken about this. No. And many other women came out speaking about things they don't like about nutmeg, so we have to take a second look at misogynistic. And then, of course, we have the Sussex squad throwing out things like, well, they're all just jealous and they're haters. What? Sharon Osbourne? I bet Sharon Osbourne could buy and sell nutmeg and the sock puppet just from the loose change she digs out of her sofa cushions. Come on. This is not someone who is a nobody. She was very, very well known and very successful, long before anybody knew who either of them were. But that is the false dichotomy that is constantly being thrown out there. Love nutmeg on one side, and racist, elitist, hater, monarchist, Empire 2.0, misogynist, or, as the Sussex squad likes to say, women of a certain age. Piers Morgan? Come on. The reason why they do this is, this is a tried and true, this is actually a legitimate logical fallacy. If you study logic, this is one of the first fallacies you will be required to study. It's the ad hominem argument. If you can't attack the argument, if you can't reason your way through the debate, attack the person saying it. Yeah, that's easy. And it is a logical fallacy, because let's face it, even Charles Manson could, at least theoretically, make a legitimate argument. But this is what they are doing. They are creating ad hominem attacks on everyone who disagrees with them. They are labeling these people are trolls, and therefore they can dismiss any criticisms. We don't have to deal with that because these are trolls, these are haters, these are people whose opinions do not count. And that is why they structure it this way. But back to the original point, this plays into that whole damned if you do, damned if you don't, because in fact, it's on the same basis as a dynamic they created themselves in the first place. And that is either or. Life is not either or. There are a lot of people, I'm sure, who are racists and don't like nutmeg. Do they dislike her because she is a person of color? How can they, when many of them didn't even know she was a person of color until she told them? There are probably a lot of misogynists out there. Do they dislike her because she's female? Probably not. I mean, you don't have to have consistency in your likes and dislikes, and you don't have to have a common thread. I can dislike nutmeg and like a great many other women in this world. I can dislike nutmeg and like a great many other biracial people in this world. I can dislike nutmeg and like my American form of government, which has no royalty. Thank you very much. And I hear this a lot in comments from people who are monarchists, and I'm not. Why would anyone expect me to be? I'm American. It's simply a different perspective. But I don't dispute with anyone who is a monarchist. If that's your choice of government, fantastic. And not only do I not hold it against them, I like watching the spectacle. And I did love the late Queen. I still do miss that woman tremendously. We are not simply the sum total of the boxes someone puts us in. So that's where the real fallacy is. But this is not a dynamic that we, the people who do not like nutmeg and the sock puppet, have created. It is not. This is a dynamic they created. And they created this dynamic long before anyone even knew who nutmeg was, long before there was any reason to believe that people had a grudge against her. She was a total stranger to everyone. Well, you all know when you first asked me to start taking a look at this, I thought she was a Canadian actress from Vancouver. Apologies to my Vancouver friends, but truly, that's what I believed. I had no idea who she was. Not a clue. I did not even know she was American. So, back in the days when Harry and Nutmeg were first dating, there was no antagonistic relationship between anyone and Nutmeg until they made it such. Why did they make it such? Like I say, she needed to lock that down. And in order to lock that down, she had to get the sock puppet to make a public statement that she was his girlfriend. And also, she had to throw the race card in there, which would further restrict the sock puppet's ability to end the relationship, because after all, if he broke up with her, remember, love nutmeg or be a racist, guess which category he would fall into. So yes, I think it was very clever of her, and I'm sure that her media people helped her work that strategy out, because that moment, November 2016, that was probably the best played strategy she ever employed. She did lock him down, and she did it by creating this completely false narrative that she was being persecuted and hounded by the press and the public because she was a woman of color. We all saw it at the time. but I don't think any of us could have anticipated the extent to which they would double down on this narrative and double down again. But yes, this is a false dichotomy, and they have been throwing it out for a very long time. So all I can say is we need to be aware of it. When you are aware of what they are doing, how long they have been doing it, how it started, why it started, and how it was implemented, at that point you can look at it and say, I know what this is, I know what you're doing, and I'm not going to play. All right, we're going to have to break off a little early, as those of you who follow the weekend videos know, in about 10 hours, I'm supposed to be in an operating room somewhere. So I need to finish this off, get this uploaded, and do whatever it is I need to do to go let somebody cut me open. So I will see you all next time. In the meanwhile, we are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out and have a happy St. Patrick's Day. Hope to see you next time.